The tools in Photoshop are very powerful. Today, we are going to learn how you can basically use the tools in Photoshop as a beginner. Join me and let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Bright, and on this channel, we make videos on Photoshop, graphic design, and also share some tech tips. If this sounds like something you're interested, then kindly consider subscribing. Today, we're going to learn how we can use the basic tools in Photoshop as beginners. And let's get started. We'll create a new project for this, as we learned in the previous video how to create a new or how to set up a new project. So we use that project to learn how to use some of the tools. In order not to make the video boring and long, we will learn some of the tools for the part 1 and learn the remaining tools for the part 2. So let's create a new project. You go to File, you click on Open, then it will send you to your file manager. I'm having my file I will use for the project on my desktop, so I'll click on Desktop. I want to use this particular image, so I will click on the image, then click on Open. Then the image will pop up on Photoshop. There's one thing I explained earlier in the previous video and I want to say it again. Anytime you open an image straightforward when starting a particular project, the image will act as a background. That's where you have not created a background, but you want to use the image to start the project. The image will act as a background. So you have to convert it to layer before you can work on it using some of the tools. So the best thing here is to double click on the layer here. Then after double clicking on it, it will change the background here, give it a name layer 0, then click on OK. Now the lock there has been removed and you can work on it perfectly. So let's get started. But I'm using the Photoshop CS6. Anything I will say here is similar to those using the other versions. So the move tool is having its toolbar here. You can see auto select, you can see show transformation. If I click on the marquee tool, it is also having its toolbar. If I click on the lasso tool, it is having its toolbar. So that's it. The toolbar works together with the tools, as I explained in my earlier tutorial when we were making ourselves familiar with Photoshop. So I will use the toolbar first. When you hover the mouse cursor on the particular tool, the name and the keyboard shortcut will display for you to know the name and the keyboard shortcut. So if I hover it on this one, it will give me a name called a crop tool, and the keyboard shortcut is C on the keyboard. That's it. So let me click on the move tool. The move tool is basically used for moving a selected item from one place to a different position. That's basically the work of the move tool. Let's demonstrate this. Assuming I want to move this tool from where it is to a different place, I will click on the move tool, then come and click and drag on the selected item I want to move, then move it to a different point I want to. So if I want to place it here, then I'll place it like this. If I want to place it here, I'll move it and place it like this. Not only to the image, but even text and shapes, you can also move them. That's basically the work of the move tool. So the next one we are going to talk about is, let me position the work as it was. So like this. The next tool we are going to talk about is the marquee tool. Now, one thing you need to notice is that some of the tools are having a chevron at the bottom right corner of them. These chevrons are trying to tell us that there are additional tools within that tool. So here we have the rectangular marquee tool, but it's with a chevron. When you right click on these tools, it will open the remaining tools that are there together with these tools. So we can see that we have the rectangular marquee tool, we have the elliptical marquee tool, the single row marquee tool, and the single column marquee tool. That's the work. So all the tools with the chevron at the right bottom corner of them is having another tools within them. So the main work of the marquee tool is also for making selection on layers. Now, after making the selection, anything that you do will affect the selected part only. It will affect the selected part only. So assuming I make selection like this selection, any work I will do here will affect the selected part. So if I select the move tool, then move, you see, I can move only the selected part. Now back to its original position. If you want to undo anything in Photoshop, CS6 is Control Alt Z, then you undo it. But if you are using CC 2020 and above, you won't add the Alt, you just press Control Z just to undo it. So if I want to change the color, I can also change the color of this, but because we haven't learned some of the tools, that's why I don't want to bring them in here. So we now know the move tool. I'm just using that one to show you that anything you do here will affect the selected part. That's it. So Control Alt Z just to come back. For those using CSS, the Control Z without Alt. Now another thing is, if you want to deselect any selection you make, maybe you make a selection and you want to deselect it, you just press Control D to deselect it. That's it. Now let's move on to the elliptical tool. Here the difference between the rectangular marquee tool and the elliptical tool is that the rectangular marquee tool makes selection in a rectangular form, and the elliptical tool also makes selection in the circular form. That's it. Apart from that, they are all used for making selection. So here, if I make a selection in a circular form, maybe I want to select the face of this gentleman, I'll use the elliptical tool. Then back to my move tool, I can move the face or the selected part to a different place, and that's it. So Control Alt Z to go back to where it was initially. That's the work of the marquee tool, the rectangular marquee tool and the elliptical tool. Let's deselect it. So Control D. If you're using the Apple tool, is Command D. Now the next tool we are going to talk about after the marquee tool is the lasso tool. The lasso tool is also used for making selections, but here it is quite different from the marquee tool. The lasso tool is also having a chevron just beneath it. So when I right click on it, I can see the lasso tool, the polygonal lasso tool and the magnetic tool. The difference here is that the lasso tool will help you to make selection on the free hand. Just move it to any direction you want to make the selection. So that's it for the hold Control, then you press on plus or minus. Minus will decrease it, then plus will increase it, it will zoom it for you, and that's it for you. So let's try the lasso tool too. The lasso tool here is used for making selection based on freehand. So assuming I want to select the forehead of this gentleman, I will first click here, then move it to where I want to do the selection. Just a freehand. You are free to move it to wherever you want to do it. Now immediately it hits back to its origin, then the selection is made. Here, anything you do here affects the selected portion. Anything you do here affects only the selected portion. So if I click on the move tool, I can move the forehead from where it is. Okay, let's undo it and let's deselect it. So let me zoom out. Now the next one within those two, within the lasso tool is the polygonal lasso tool. Here, polygonal lasso tool is also used for making selections, but here in the shape of a polygon. So here you are not having your free choice. You are not making the selection on a freehand, but you are a little bit restricted to a particular point. So if I click, assuming I want to remove the background here with the polygonal lasso tool, I can click here. Now you see I'm not having my free will to select it based on freehand, but I have to move it to where I want to select and click again, then click it gradually like that to make my selection. So if I bring it back to my origin where I started the selection, now I will make a selection here. Now anything I will do here will affect the selected parts. So if I click on the move tool, I can move the selected parts from here. Let me zoom out so that you see it well. I can move the selected parts. I can change this color of the selected part. I can delete the selected part by pressing delete key on my keyboard. That's it for the polygonal lasso tool. So let me undo it. Control Alt Z until it reaches to where you want it to get to. That's the work of the polygonal lasso tool. Now let's deselect our selection and move on to the magnetic lasso tool. Magnetic lasso tool is also used for making selection, but here I love this tool because this tool will make selection based on tracking. It will track the edges where you are making the selection, then make the selection. It works perfectly on images with a plain background. Let's demonstrate this. So I'll click on the magnetic tool, then start from where I want to make the selection. Mine is just to drag it to the drag it by the edges, and automatically the magnetic lasso tool will make the selection for me. So I'll click here. You can zoom it out, you can zoom it in so that you can see it very well. Now whilst I'm moving to the edges, I'm moving by the edges, it will be automatically making the selection for me. Whilst I'm moving by the edges of my image, it will be making the selection for me. And that's it. It will be making the selection for me. If I get to where I want to end my selection, then I will turn back like this, then send it to my where I started the selection. That's the origin of the selection. When immediately I will get to the origin of the selection, that's where I started the selection, I will see a small round shape just beneath the tool, or just beneath the mouse cursor, telling me that I have gotten to the origin. Same applies to all the other lasso tools. I'll click on it, then my selection is now made. Here, let me zoom out so that you see here anything I will do here affects only the selected parts. I can move the selected parts like this, I can delete it like this, and that's it. So that's for the lasso. Undo them. Control Alt Z to undo it, and let me deselect it. Control D to deselect it. So that's the work of the lasso tool too. So lasso tool, polygonal lasso tool, and the magnetic lasso tool, they are all used for making selection. Now a quick one, let's move on to the next tool. That's the quick selection tool. The quick selection tool is also used for selecting objects, but here the quick selection tool is there with a magic wand tool. The quick selection tool is just to select objects. So you click on it. When you select the quick selection tool, left click and move your cursor around where you want to make the selection. It works very perfectly on image with plain backgrounds. So this is my quick selection tool. I'll just left click, then move my mouse cursor to the area around where I want to make the selection. So if I want to make the selection at this area, I will just move and it will select it for me. Here, whatever I will do here, applies on the selected part. So if I click on the delete, see the selected part will be deleted for me. That's it. So let me undo it. That's if I click on the move tool, I can use the move tool to move the selected part from there, and that's the work of the quick selection tool. I like using this tool a lot because it makes the removal of background very easy in Photoshop CS6. And that's it for the quick selection tool. Now the magic wand tool. The magic wand tool is also there with the quick selection tool. The magic wand tool is also used for selecting a particular color at an exact place. So you see, you can have the background here, and if I want to select the background here or wherever the color of the background is, or the color I will select is, I'll just click on it, then it will make the selection around it. Here it will find it very difficult to select because the background is almost having the same color with the main object. That's the shirt of this gentleman here. So let me deselect. If I want to make a selection of here, you see, wherever I click, the selections will be made for those wherever any place having the same color. Selections will be made for places with the same color. So I can deselect by pressing Ctrl D. That's it. So if I click on the shirt tool, wherever any part of the image having the same color as where I have clicked will be selected. And here after the selection, I can work. Anything I will do here will affect or apply to the selection. That's also the work of the magic wand tool. Now let me deselect, Ctrl D. The next tool we're going to talk about is the crop tool. Here there are a lot of tools here. We have the crop perspective tool, perspective crop tool, we have the slice tool, we have the slice selected tool. But at the beginning stage, what we need here is the crop tool. The crop tool, as we know here, is used for cropping image. So assuming I'm having a very nice image like this and I want to crop it up to maybe his neck, I'll just first click on the crop tool, then come down here to move it to where I wanted to crop it. Maybe I want to crop it like this, so move it to this side, then move it to this side. After that, I can either press enter, or better still, if I don't want to press enter too, let me undo this. So Ctrl Alt Z. But if you're using Photoshop CC 2020, it's Ctrl Z. So if I finish with my cropping, let me say I wanted to crop it up to this side, very nice one, this side. I can come up here and click on this thing, this tick here, click on it, then my cropping will be made for me, very nice one. So that's the work of the crop tool. It is used to crop shapes or crop images. That's the work of the crop tool. Let me know if you have any question or there's something you didn't understand concerning the tools. Let me know it in the comment section so that I will retreat it again for you to get the understanding.